Afternoon and welcome to the Joint Committee on Government Operations and Agriculture and Environment. Today is Tuesday, March 29th at 3:00 p.m. We are in conference room 16. I'm Sharon Moriwaki, Chair of the Government Operations Committee, and joining me today is Senator Chang and Senator Gabbard, and going on to our co-chair here, Senator Gabbard on the Agriculture and Environment Committee.
And also Senator Ocasio and Senator Rhodes.
Welcome. Before proceeding, I'd like to make a few housekeeping announcements. The hearing is being streamed live on YouTube. You can find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. And all testimonies will be posted on the legislature's website. In the unlikely event that we encounter major technical difficulties during the hearing and must end it abruptly, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Thursday, March 31st in this conference room and via video conference. We are working in hybrid mode. So the first, we will be hearing from those who are here. Thank you for joining us. And then followed by those joining us remotely on Zoom. And then I'll note the written testimony that have been submitted. So first up is SCR 107 and SR 94, urging the state and each county to adopt the Global Pact for the environment to achieve the United Nations Paris Agreement and the 2030 Development Agenda, and to specifically adopt the UN Sustainable Development Goals numbers 13 through 17. Anyone testifying here in person? Oh, please join us.
Aloha, I'm Joshua Cooper. I'm with the Hawai'i Institute for Human Rights, and it's an honor to be here in person again to discuss.
And could you state your name?
Joshua Cooper.
Oh, Joshua.
Joshua
Oh, I
Cooper.
Yes.
That's helpful. Does that help? But thank you. First time with that. I know we can barely shop or do anything else, so now advocating is a new step, but it's an honor to be here. And the Global Pact for the Environment is an important initiative spearheaded by France. It was after the Paris Agreement in 2015, and it was bringing together the importance of human rights and the environment together and to take it to the next level. So we think it's an important tool to add to all of the different advocacy that we have to ensure that the Paris Agreement becomes a reality. And so it's a simple resolution. It's a Global Pact for the Environment. And the main part is it's linking human rights and also helping the people who are the ones defending the planet to make sure they have that protection. But the other side is also what we do here in Hawaii, which is great, which doesn't happen everywhere else, where there's the right to public participation and to have the information beforehand, and then to be able to participate in the decision-making that looks at the matters of protecting our planet. So that's the Global Pact for the Environment, and I hope you could support that. Thank you very much. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Anyone with questions for Mr. Cooper? Okay, thank you very much. And on Zoom, we have DLNR.
Aloha, co-chairs, members of the committee. Mahalo for having us here. My name is Leah Laramie with the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources. We'd like to stand on our testimony and support. Mahalo.
Thank you. Climate Protectors Hawaii.
Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. We are in strong support of these resolutions, Senate Concurrent Resolution 107, Senate Resolution 94. As the previous speaker, Joshua, indicated, these are important worldwide initiatives that we want to support in order to see the Paris Agreement implemented. Hawaii has a lot at stake with climate change. As an island nation, we're on the forefront. We're going to see increased strength of storms, sea level rise, coastal devastation, fires, floods, etc. All these things are coming as a result of climate change, and we need to do all we can to mitigate the effects of climate change. These resolutions are a step in that direction. I would urge the committee to support them, and I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on these resolutions? Okay, members, questions of anyone here or on Zoom? Okay, we do have written testimony in support from 350 Hawaii. Hawaii Forest Industry, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, Wild Kids, and 4 individuals. And then we have 1 individual in opposition. There's no one else. We'll move on to SCR 108 and SR 95, affirming Hawaii's ongoing commitment to the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and endorsement of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. First up, Joshua Cooper again.
Aloha, Chair. Thank you so much. Great to meet everyone again. Joshua Cooper with Hawaii Institute for Human Rights. And this important resolution kind of fills a puka in the Paris Agreement, where it was really hard. You could see at Glasgow just last November to get the language on fossil fuels. And this one addresses fossil fuels and moving away from those more rapidly, especially as we see the impacts of the climate crisis on Pacific Island communities, as well as us here in Hawaii. So we believe this builds on the important work that we've done. It's great to be in this room. I think the last time we were here was we were doing UNA, United Nations Association Day, and we were celebrating Hawaii adopting the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. We were the first state to do that. And that is really what this also looks at, the familiar relationship between humanity and the planet. And this important resolution builds on the global goals, where Hawaii is was the first state to do a voluntary local review. And also, more importantly, looks at the one aspect that wasn't addressed at the global level during Paris, as well as in Glasgow, as I mentioned earlier. And that's really looking at fossil fuels and moving away from those more rapidly. And I believe we do have those natural resources here in Hawaii, and we can see their shifts and moves taking place, especially with the conflict in Ukraine, putting the connection with everything else. So we also have our testimony that we stand by, but just want to talk on those other aspects. So thank you so much for making time today.
Thank you. And Peter Greenhill, that must be you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak here. It's truly an honor to be here. So aloha to everyone. My name is Peter Greenhill, and until very recently, when I retired, I was for 17 years the director of the Iolani Peace Institute. I'm here though as a concerned individual citizen, and also as someone who has been working as part of an international network group for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Organization, which is making a great deal of progress worldwide. I would echo many of the things that Joshua already said. In particular, the idea that this feels a very important puka that we saw in Glasgow and Paris, and in particular, the urgency to move away as quickly as possible from both the supply side of fossil fuels and the consumption side. And in addition to that, we see it as being very, very consistent with philosophical and political and economic moves that have been made in our state so far, and also with our values of aloha aina and malama honua. And I would, by all means, urge us very strongly to support this resolution. I think it spells out very clearly what the urgency is, what the adverse effects have already been, and how important it would be for this to help ameliorate the situation as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify either here or in Zoom?
For the Climate Protectors Hawaii, Ted Boland again, online. Thank you again, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. I can hardly improve on the testimony of the past speakers. We have an urgent situation. We need to do something about climate change now. And this resolution is a good step in that direction to help follow on our commitments in the past to Paris and other international agreements. So the Climate Protectors of Hawaii strongly supports this resolution, concurrent resolution and Senate resolution, and urges the committees to adopt it. thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. I see Tyler Levine.
Yes.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. Aloha. I would also like to testify on this measure. So good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committees. Again, thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support for SCR 108 and SR 95. My name is Tyler. I am a founder, a forester, a farmer, and a homeschool student who has witnessed the chaotic storm of humanity within the reflection of the climate crisis for the last 17 years. Warming temperatures, rising sea levels, and the increased frequency of droughts, floods, and fires spell a recipe for destruction in our island home and around the world. They say climate change is a code red for humanity. This means it is time to put the people and the planet before pay. Yet, business as usual continues. In fact, economic growth in the global economy is still linked to the high demand for fossil fuels, meaning greenhouse gas emissions are only going up. Taking action to address the climate emergency within the boundaries of society is quite like applying a band-aid to a symptom of a problem. Mending an external wound while ignoring the centralized system of separation and discrimination that continues to reinforce our habits of overconsumption. Therefore, radical action is required for international cooperation to ensure the non-proliferation of fossil fuels. And I believe that this begins right here in this room. I think through this resolution, Hawaii can continue to be a leader in the climate movement, showing the world the pathway towards a future of clean energy and a safe climate below 1.5 degrees. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Tyler. Anyone with questions? Well, thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone else?
Oh.
Yes.
Chair, I do have a question for Dr. Cooper.
Oh,
if that's
okay.
Dr. Cooper, please. So we've got here in this phrase, the Glasgow Climate Pact improved incrementally, only calling for a phase down, not a phase out of coal. Did you go to Glasgow?
I did go to Glasgow, yes.
Are you aware of whether or not they talked about what a phase down of coal would look like?
Yeah,
Kind
it
of
was,
numerically.
well, it was a compromise.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with Glasgow and with Paris and those big agreements, when all the countries come together, any one country, if they say no, nothing is adopted. So the final 48 hours, it's all nighters. And that was Secretary or Global Envoy Kerry negotiating, as well as the EU, as well as with Saudi Arabia. So the hope was there would be a phase out, but certain countries did not want to go along with that. So they moved towards the phase down. And I would say the idea behind this resolution is that's especially as Tyler had just shared, if things are so urgent that we can't be phasing down and hoping to get there. We see climate crisis. And I just did a television show this morning because the Commission on the Status of Women met in New York for the last 2 weeks, and it was focusing on gender and climate. And for the people who were on the show, they're in Fiji and they're already relocating their homes from the shoreline, and they're doing a human rights-based approach. But for the people of the Pacific, this is already beyond the point. And so saying phase down does not work. So we thought that this resolution and seeing that the important work done that Peter was sharing earlier with the treaty, that's a move in the right direction that then addresses one of the shortcomings from Glasgow.
Okay, thank you very much.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Chair.
Any other
I do
questions?
have a question. So just could you speak to the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty in kind of in terms of how much does the conversation and the details in the Paris Agreement, for example, focus more on decarbonization versus just getting off of fossil fuels? And
Yeah, it's
elaborate on that.
right. So the positive aspect of Paris was it was one of the first times it really had a holistic approach, taking into consideration of all aspects. But when there was a shortcoming, such as in this case with oil and gas, this treaty was then trying to address that shortcoming. And so what we're looking at now is to say, no more, keep the oil in the soil. The other important point that I'd echo to build in with all the other speakers was it's really 1.5 to stay alive. And what's amazing, of course, being here in Hawaii is I've been home more than ever. So going to Mauna Loa and being there on Hawaii Island, Mokoke'awe, that's where it's all measured in the world. And we're way above the 350 parts per million. And if we don't keep it 1.5 and below, it's life and death for the people of the Pacific. So we thought it's important to have solidarity with the other Pacific neighbors. And to, as Peter said, bring up Malama Honua. We know Hokulea will be leaving very soon to go down to Tahiti for a Blue Climate Conference. And it's that important aspect. We remember our historical role and connection with all of the other Pacific Island nations and Moana Nui Akea. So the fossil fuel treaty is saying, we're with you. We want to also move more rapidly to that. And Hawaii has been a leader. Last year, I really want to applaud for being the first state to be a climate emergency, to declare that. And we know now the US is potentially looking, but we've always been a leader, and this just continues that role, looking at those sustainable development goals. And that's the exciting part is if I go anywhere else in the world, I'm like, we have a framework. We're working with the global goals. We're looking at the 2030 agenda and the Paris Agreement. And I know my students are excited and they're just like, can we really go down the ledge and testify? And I'm like, sure. So we're looking at our Earth Day coming up April 20th to 22nd. And a lot of the youth are very excited to see Hawaii be a leader again.
And didn't Mauna Loa just register recently at like 420?
Yeah. And
Yeah, that's out of control.
it is.
Yeah.
And so there's this amazing, The Guardian actually gives a chart every 2 weeks, and it's sadly way above 350. So I'm trying to figure out how to share that in a positive way where it doesn't make people depressed, but also makes people more alert and aware of what we can all do together.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mahalo, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those are the only four resolutions we have before us, and I think that we've got enough support here for these two resolutions that we, instead of going into a recess, we can go straight into decision making, if it's okay.
Yep.
Okay, so on SCR 107 and SR 94, urging the state and county to adopt the global pact to achieve the UN Paris Agreement and the 2030 Development Agenda and the UN Sustainable Development Goals 13 through 17. Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair votes aye. Senator Dela Cruz excused. Senator Chang.
Aye.
Senator Gabbard
Aye.
and Senator Favela excused. With 3 voting aye, the recommendation is adopted by the Government Operations Committee. Now to AEN.
Same recommendation for AEN. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Ocasio.
Aye.
Senator Rose.
Aye.
Senator Favela. Excuse. Motion is adopted.
Thank you, members.
Okay, on SCR 108 and SR 95, affirming Hawaii's ongoing commitment to the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and endorsement of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. Chair's recommendation is to pass with technical non-substantive amendments. Chair votes aye. Senator Dela Cruz excused. Senator Chang.
Aye.
Senator Gabbard.
Aye.
Senator Favela excused. Recommendation adopted. Thank you.
Same recommendation for AEN. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Ocasio.
Aye.
Senator Rose.
Aye.
Senator Favela excuse. Motion is adopted.
Thank you all. There be no other business. This hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.